Okay, so, oh my gosh. I'm gonna go ahead and talk about Hexagonal Magus, the last card. I don't know how the video's gonna turn out, so hopefully it turns out okay, but for the most part, I'm just gonna hopefully briefly talk about this break ride. So, this is the last triple rare. There's Battle Sister Parfait, and then there's Hexagonal Magus for extra booster set 7. And it is probably my favorite break ride, not just because it's Oracle Think Tanks, because it's a pretty good +1. Because when you break ride, you get to add the top card. No, you look at the top 3, and you add 1 to your hand and move the rest on the top of the deck. So this means 2 things. The first one is you can pretty much choose which card you draw. So, like, unlike blind draw where you're just like, crap, I drew a draw trigger. Instead, you can actually pick the cards you want, and if one of them happens to be a non-trigger, which usually happens most of the time, you can put that in your hand and leave the rest of them on top of the deck, in which one case would be a trigger. Second case would be, it benefits the Magus deck well because you know what the card on the top is, so if you like just declare with Stellar Magus, it's a free card because you already know what it is, or if it's a trigger, then if they try to guard for 2 triggers, then you're just like, double trigger. Yeah, because you knew you get a double trigger, or you just trigger in general, and it's just a really good card. It's just a pretty good break rate because you know what your triggers are going to be, and you get to replace the grade 3 that you wrote. So it's a very really good card. It's pretty balanced. I like it so far. But you know, I don't know what to say about it. I mean, it's just like every other break ride. I mean, if it's a break ride that pluses, it's just a really good card in general. If it's a break ride that doesn't plus, it's kind of okay. And if it just minuses the opponent, then it's also kind of okay. But for the most part, it's just like, why bother kind of thing. I mean, it's pretty good. It's really good. Just like, you know, it's a break ride that gives a +1. Not much else to say, but it benefits the Magus deck well. I mean, what other grade 3 you want to run? If I had to say something extra, I would assume that this deck pretty much goes in every Oracle Think Tank deck that has a spare grade 3 they can't use. So like, for example, you can run this in just regular CEO Amaterasu. Since you can just top check the card every single time, you can just manipulate your field in order to do so. And break riding CEO Amaterasu is not really a bad thing, so that's already just hand in hand, just generally good card. Coco, it's kind of weird because you want to ride the Coco so you get that early draw. But Hexagonal Magus with it is also pretty good because if you don't draw this Coco, then Hexagonal Magus is also a really good card to ride. And since you have Lulu, you're going to draw a card anyway, so it's pretty decent, I suppose. I mean, I guess if you do break ride, you kind of just draw like 3 cards, and like I guess that's pretty good. I mean, your Coco's really fat, but I mean, they're gonna guard it anyway, but you know, I guess you just get a free card anyway. I guess it's kind of weird. Tsukiyomi's pretty good with this card because if you don't ride the Tsukiyomi, then you can just ride Hexagonal Magus, and then it'll be the 6th soul, and then you just ride Full Moon, and then you just get 6th soul, and it's just really good because you just break ride and you just draw like 4 cards, and it's amazing. Yeah. And then it's just Sun Goddess. It's just like you just get 31,000. Maybe you ride CEO Amaterasu, then you ride Hexagonal, then you ride Sun Goddess, and then you just break ride and you just attack for 31,000. Your opponent's like, I can't guard this for 2 triggers, no guard, and then you double crit them, and then you add a card, a perfect guard to your hand, and you're just like, oh, look at my hand, it's like fat and stuff. The break ride does a lot for the Oracles because, you know, Oracle never had a break ride until now, and the only other spare grade 3 they could use was like Sakia, and Sakia was okay, but not as good as Hexagonal Magus now because Hexagonal Magus is amazing. So yeah, like, I mean, it's just like every other break ride. Like, if it's a deck that needs another spare grade 3, then you run the break ride, because if you miss the grade 3 that you want to ride, you run the break ride instead, so you can ride that, and then you ride the grade 3 that you want to ride later on to benefit the fact that you misrode your grade 3, but because the break ride gives you advantage, if you did miss your grade 3, you'd actually rather ride the break ride than the regular card. But then it's confusing, but the point is, because there are decks in Oracles that usually just rely on the one grade 3 to just pile drive them through the rest of the game, Hexagonal Magus does it well, because not only is she 11,000, but she benefits you if you ride the Coco later on in the game, so she's a good spare card. And with like 7Ks in Coco deck in general, you can just put Hexagonal behind it, becomes an 18 lane, because that's a problem that the deck has, is that it can't break 18 easily. Cough, cough, Tom, I hate him so much. So Hexagonal Magus just breaks 11 plus Lala or Omelette or whatever. It just makes good numbers, and it's just really good. Oh, and Hexagonal Magus in front of Lulu is a 16 lane, which is good against 16 lanes because the deck has like 0-11k attackers, except for like Mocha, which is a problem. So that's really good because they just hit good numbers, and it's just a good, freaking good deck, and it's just good. It's just good. I should try that out, actually. Hexagonal with Coco. Wonder how that'll work. And it'll probably be really slow in the beginning, considering that Lulu is not a booster and stuff, but when you ride the Hexagonal Magus, you just pile drive and you just win, I guess. So, in Magus deck, Hexagonal Magus is just really good because you check the top cards of the deck. You can check the top cards of Stellar Magus and you get a plus. Crescent Magus, you get to add cards. Not add cards. You get plus 3,000, so it's a 9k booster. With Cuore Magus, it's 21k attack. Pentagonal Magus, you'll get an extra crit, plus 5,000 because you know what the top card is. Hexagonal Magus and Pentagonal Magus are 11,000 attackers, so they're very good attackers in general. What am I missing? Briolette Magus, you want to draw the card because you know what you want. Well, you don't really need Briolette Magus anyway because you already know what the top card of the deck is regardless. It's just overall Hexagonal Magus is just really good because it just gives advantage. It makes the deck work better. In fact, you want to actually write Hexagonal Magus before Pentagonal Magus to actually pull off the awesome, because it just works infinitely better if you have the Pentagonal Magus later and write Hexagonal Magus first, because it's just generally better for the deck. For a generic build, it's pretty much easy. I mean, there's a wide variety of builds since Magus is not Magus specific. Like, unlike, you know, Liberators and Eradicators, the only special counterblast that really focuses on Magus is Pentagonal Magus herself, and it really isn't exactly, you know, that big. It's just counterblast, special counterblast 2 Magus and then plus 5,000. It isn't exactly like game changing or anything. So you can just run a variety of oracles in that deck and it'll work because it's just Oracle Think Tank specific. Like, the only other card that is Magus specific is Cuore Magus, but you don't even have to run that card either. So, because Circle Magus is just Oracle Think Tank Vanguard, Stellar Magus is Oracle Think Tank Vanguard, everything is just Oracle Think Tank Vanguard except for Pentagonal and Cuore and Lipis, which is, you know, just 3 cards out of like the entire archetype. I mean, after all, they only have like one trigger that is a Magus, which is Lozenge Magus, not counting Sphere Magus because that's also a heal trigger, so it doesn't matter. So for the most part, it's just a pretty, just, you know, you can just run whatever you want. So there's a lot of variety builds on what people want to run with Hexagonal Magus, because it is a very strange deck because there's just so much things you can do with it. But for the basic, like, standard build, if you just want to, like, buy extra boosters at 7 and build a deck off of that, then, and of course get the Pentagonal Magus because it's a promo for some reason. It's actually not part of the set, so you have to kind of get a promo. I don't know how they're going to do that, but I think it's just going to be a promo for the booster box, which will make it very easy for American players. For the most part, though, the build will just be like 4 Pentagonal Magus, 4 Hexagonal Magus, 4 Stellar Magus, 4 Cuore Magus, 3 Briolette Magus, because Stellar Magus and Cuore Magus is more stronger, since Briolette Magus kind of slows the deck down because you're not going to trigger easily. If you read the card, you'll understand. If you saw my video, you'll understand even more. 4 Circle Magus, because she's a 7,000 that just checks the top. It's pretty basic, simple, awesome. Crescent Magus is 6,000, but she's better than Circle Magus because, unlike Circle Magus, Crescent Magus checks every turn, whereas Circle Magus checks only for that one turn. Tetra Magus, because she's a Magus perfect card. I mean, you can also run Balances of Chocolate because it kind of doesn't matter. But if you really want that Magus special counterblast with Pentagonal Magus, run the Tetra Magus, especially since it's in the same set as Extra Booster Set 7. So yeah, for Crescent Magus, did I say that already? I think I did. Scratch that. And 2 Lipis Magus. This is kind of like whatever you want to run kind of thing. I've seen my friend run Lala, which is also pretty good because you don't have soul when you run Lulu, and you just swap out your grade 3 to draw a card and pray to God that it's not a trigger. And then for triggers, you run 12 crit and 4 heal, and then Lulu. People might run around the 4 draw to increase consistency, but since this deck can get overwhelming advantage, and the point of the deck is to try to destroy them as quickly as possible, you want to run 12 crit, I think, which is Psychic Bird, Battle Sister, Ginger, and Nikke. Which, by the way, none of them are Magus crits! So anyway, I'm just gonna say that Hexagonal Magus and the Magus deck in general is really, really good. It's just kind of confusing because there's just so much combos and it's not Vanguard orientated like every other archetype card, like Raging Form, Dragon Descendant, Alfred, stuff like that. It synergizes well with the rear guards. Like, the rear guards make the deck. Like, Pentagonal just happens to be just a straightforward attacker, but for the most part, the rear guards play a very essential role, and they actually make Pentagonal Magus infinitely better due to the fact of the synergy within the deck in general. So, thanks for watching, guys. If you really like Oracle Think Tanks and kind of like think that it'll never improve and you think Coco is just that good, try out Magus. I think it's better than Coco because everything is 11,000. So yeah, see you next video, I guess. Yeah, sorry about the lateness.